Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 550, 550, Sunday, September 16th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the Sunday morning edition. Little TowerGate with your coffee. Well, we got a very, very busy morning. Let's get to it. Last night, Sarah Carter was on Sean Hannity, and she used a phrase that I think is very, very good. The phrase that she used was the deception operation. And that's a very good phrase because as we know, what was actually going on here was many different, within the deep state coup, many different deception operations. And who is it that engages in these types of deception operations? Well, it's typically clandestine services, the intelligence agencies. You don't think so much about the FBI or law enforcement. You think more about intelligence and clandestine and covert operations and things and such. Of course, we know, those of you who follow TowerGate, know that this in fact was the origin of a lot of these things because it started with John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, setting up the multi-agency task force very early in 2016. As early as sometime, it's believed in late March, early April 2017 is when he set up this task force. And who did he bring into this task force? It wasn't just the regular FBI or DOJ or even the regular intelligence CIA. It was actually the DOJ NSD, the National Security Division, which gets into these types of espionage things. He brought in this the National Security Branch. He also brought in this super secret group within the CIA that specializes in clandestine operations, the overthrow of governments, and that specifically focuses on propaganda, using propaganda to destroy political opponents, using the media, using fake stories, false media stuff. That's where all this comes from. And they're another agency tucked in within the CIA. So if you look at all these agencies that were Brennan brought in, they were all the types of agencies that do clandestine type activities, that do these types of overthrows of governments, takedowns of leaders who they don't like, political enemies they want to destroy. These are all the agencies that were brought in to the multi-agency task force. They weren't the investigative agencies within any of these groups. They weren't the counterintelligence types that you normally bring in. All the people brought in to the multi-agency task force from the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, and all those, they were all the ones that specialize in espionage, counter-espionage, these clandestine type overthrowing of governments, using propaganda, using spies, using agent provocateurs. This is what this whole specialty operation was. It was a gigantic operation, as Sarah Carter words it, the deception operation. Now, once they continue down this track, and it becomes, and I hope this term really gets used a lot because it really is a good way to describe it. And as you look at this, we all know there was many different deception operations, whether it was the operations going on against Papadopoulos, whether it was the operations against Carter Page, Michael Flynn, the Twin Tower meeting, the attempts to set up Caputo and Stone. All these things were part of these types of clandestine setups, deception operations. But I hope as they're going through this process that they go back to the origins of what began a lot of this, that started the narrative. The narrative began, the Trump-Russia narrative really began when they came out and after the alleged hack of the DNC, they came out and said, oh, okay, well, the Russians hacked us. That was the first step in the Trump-Russia. First it was Russia. Russia hacked us. Later it was they hacked us on behalf of Trump. The Russians hacked the DNC to help Trump. But originally it was just the Russians hacked us. So I think that what I'm saying is that I hope as it becomes more obvious of this deception operation and the multiple deception operations that were going on, that they start to focus a little bit, in fact a lot of bit, excuse me, on the original sin. The original sin, which was the original deception, which was that Russia hacked the DNC. There's a lot of reasons why we shouldn't believe that. No real evidence has been proven, other than CrowdStrike, and we know who paid for them. That entire thing was the original sin, the original deception. And I do hope that they go looking into that deeply, because I think that they'll learn what we already, most of us know, that there was not a hack of the Russians into the DNC, that it was in fact a leak by a disgruntled employee. Just several weeks ago, I had in one of my TowerGate videos where Julian Assange's mother had tweeted out that in fact the truth about the DNC so-called hack was not a hack at all. Rather, it was a disgruntled DNC employee is the one who gave her son, his organization, the DNC emails and that type of thing. So anyway, I hope that the phrase deception operation is something that they really focus on, because it's a very good two words to describe it. It gets you thinking in the right way when you're investigating this plot, the deep state coup. And if you dig deep into it and you go back to the origin, when that first Russia stuff started popping up, it was the excuse that they used to blame Russia for the very fact that someone on the inside had leaked that stuff. They knew it was going to come out, and they had to cover their butt. And they couldn't say, well, one of our disgruntled employees who didn't like it because we were cheating Bernie, he's the one who leaked that stuff. No, that would be too damaging to the rotten Reverend Clinton and to the DNC. They had to cover their butt, and the way they did it was by blaming Russia. But if we go into the investigation, as the investigation moves forward, and we begin to maybe question that narrative as just another one of the many deception operations, maybe we'll question, or maybe someone will begin questioning whether or not that was even true. And hopefully they'll investigate it and find that it was not. That it was not the Russians. That in fact it was Seth Rich who leaked that stuff to WikiLeaks. That was the original sin, the original deception operation that gave us the Russia narrative. Sarah Card also talked about the fact that they're expecting a huge tranche of emails to be released next week. The Peter's been stroking us and Lisa Page text. As many as 50,000. Remember, when the Congress first started requesting this Strzok page stuff, they knew at that time that there was about 50,000 pages. They've only received a little over 1,000 pages, which means about 98% of it is still they have still not received. But apparently that stuff's all going to be dumped in a big tranche next week, and that's probably because they just want to overwhelm them and dump so much on them that it'll make it hard for them to go through it all quickly. And I also think that at this point, Mueller and Rodenstein and the others who are involved in this are hedging their bets. They're thinking, you know what, the last time we counted on the Rotten Reverend winning and we lost, and this is how we got here. Let's not make the same mistake twice of counting on the Democrats to take back the House. Very likely that they won't. And if they don't, then our problems really begin, because we can't drag this thing out for another 2 years. It's come to a head. So I think Uncle Bob the Executioner, he wants to get out before the midterms because he knows what's coming if the Republicans hold on. Rod Rodenstein, he knows that he's going to be needing a good defense attorney, and he's going to be having a lot of problems, and he probably doesn't want to be in that position when all this shakes its stuff out. So he's probably looking for a way out too. And they know this stuff is going to come out. They can't stop it any longer. I think they've gone as far as they could go, and they realize it. So I think the only thing left to do for them is to drop it all, and drop so much that it becomes very labor intensive to go through it all before the midterms. So it looks like a calculated move to drop all this stuff at once, the remaining Strzok page texts, to try and impede it by just dumping so much stuff out there that it's hard for them to get to it before the midterms. This is just speculation on my part, but it'll be interesting to see if we do see that stuff come out. Now, I did talk yesterday just briefly about Joe DeGeneva saying that James Baker, who was the chief legal counsel for the FBI, essentially Comey's FBI lawyer, the fact that Joe DeGeneva is saying that they've convened a grand jury and that Baker is now turned state's evidence and is cooperating. And I would like to believe that's true, but consider me a skeptic as always. And I like Joe DeGeneva. He may have contacts, I don't, in the DOJ. Maybe he knows something I don't. He probably does. But I'm still going to remain skeptical. And the reason is because after Baker left, he went to work for Lawfare Blog, part of the resistance. In fact, the primary point of resistance. Lawfare blog is the primary point of resistance for all the legal crap that's being thrown against the wall. And that's where Baker went to work. So I find it, I'm a little skeptical that he would be over there working for Lawfare blog and Benjamin Witt's at the same time that he's turning state's evidence against all those very same people that have found their way there. In fact, that's where Lisa Page is likely to end up if she's not already there. All these people that got bounced out from the DOJ and the FBI, who are essentially lawyers, are all ending up over there at the Resistance, which is the Lawfare blog. Benjamin Witt's deal over there, which is closely connected with the Clintons, Obama, Valerie Jarrett, the Resistance, the whole 9 yards. That's where Baker has been. So, maybe he's playing both sides of the fence, but I don't know. So I'll remain skeptical, but I hope it's true. But just something to keep in mind. So I want to talk specifically about a couple of the most damaging recent texts that have come out that they were discussing on Fox last night. And I think it's very, very damaging, this particular text that Peter Ben-Strokenis sent out, based on the fact that we're talking about these media leaks, and Peter Ben-Strokenis, his lawyers, denying this leak campaign, which is laughable. They won't do that under oath, I can assure you. But look at this text right here. Here you have Peter Ben-Strokenis sends these texts to Lisa Page. He says, "It will make your head spin to realize how many stories we played a personal role in." And then followed by, "Sheesh, this has been quite a year." And then he forwards a link to Lisa Page, and the link is to the New York Times most read stories of 2016. He's essentially saying it right here. Again, just more extremely damning evidence. You cannot spin this one. He's telling Lisa Page that it's going to make her head spin when she realizes, or they all realize, how many stories they played a role in. Then he sends her a link to the New York Times most read stories of the year to basically say, look how many of these most read stories of the year at the New York Times that we played a major role in. That is smoking gun evidence. And there's plenty more. So much for this idea that they were trying to stop leaks, or were working on an investigation to stop leaks. No. There's too much evidence. They'll never say that under oath in front of a grand jury or in front of a jury in a court or anywhere else. Number one, they get laughed out of the room. Number two, they'll be likely hit with lying to a judge, or lying perjury. Now, I want to go back to something else that I kind of thought about. I was going through my timeline the other night and just filling in my timeline with things that have happened that we've learned about in the last couple days or so. But it's stuff that happened long ago, so I'm having to go back into my timeline back into 2016, 2017 to fill in the gaps as this stuff comes out. We're learning about it now, but it happened then. So I try to go back and put things into the framework where they should have been. So I just happened, as I was going through my timeline, I just kind of was reflecting back on some things, and I talk sometimes about H.A. Goodman, who I like H.A. He's on the right side of history now. But I started watching H.A. back about late spring, early summer 2016. And I remember he was talking a lot then. He was a big Bernie supporter back then. And he was talking a lot then about how the Rotten Reverend Clinton and her team had decided very early on how they were going to rig the election for Hillary. And so they did the first thing that the Clintons always do, which is they get rid of the field of competition. They look at anyone who could be a true competitor to, in this case, Hillary, and they get rid of them. They just go to them and say, hey, look, this is Hillary's deal. She's gonna be the nominee, okay? We're going to make sure that we got all the money, we got all the support. The only thing that you can do is create problems for us. Don't do that. If you create problems for Hillary, we'll create problems for you. Back out. You can run some other time. It's Hillary's time. But they knew that they couldn't have Hillary run unopposed. There had to be somebody for her to run against, right? So they decided to pick a guy who had no national name recognition, Martin O'Malley, and who was dull as he could possibly be. I mean, the guy's like watching paint peel, right? So he's boring as a dial tone, right? So they had O'Malley to be a stick figure to stand there next to Hillary so that she could just kind of beat him around the head and shoulders. And then, of course, they had the super liberal Bernie, the Marxist, the commie. And so they really loved having Commie Bernie there, because that is part of the Rotten Reverend Clinton's strategy, was to run her husband's campaign from 92 to say, hey, I'm a centrist, because she knows that the Republicans will be running against her and saying, hey, Hillary's a Democrat, a liberal Democrat. Don't elect a liberal. So Hillary needed to shake that and make sure that she could run as a centrist. Excuse me. And make sure that she couldn't be effectively targeted as a liberal. So what she needed to do was to have Commie Bernie there so that she could show the contrast between an extreme leftist like Bernie and herself, so that she could not only go through the Democratic nomination process unscathed, but that she could also come out of it having positioned herself as a centrist and not a leftist like a Bernie socialist, or and she could win like O'Malley couldn't. So in other words, to make her the only possible choice for Democrats. So they effectively did that, okay? But they also were looking at the Republican side and thinking, who do we want to run against? And as H.A. Goodman very well laid out during that late spring, early summer of 2016, they decided they wanted to run against Trump. They thought, yeah, let's do Trump. We'll just destroy Trump. Hillary will beat him in all 50 states. He has no chance. No chance. But look at all those other Republicans out there. Some of those guys are pretty good, you know. So what we have to do is we have to work to take out the leading Republicans there, and we want to run against Donald Trump. So the Right Reverend Clinton wanted to run against Donald Trump, and she got her wish. And of course, that turned out to be the biggest mistake she could have ever made. Now, had the Right Reverend Clinton been paying attention, and had she actually had any political skill, she would have realized that the 1992 campaign of being a centrist was a 1992 campaign, not relevant in 2016. What was happening, if you look around the globe, what had began happening in 2013, 14, 15, 16, was this anti-establishment movement all across Europe. She should have realized that the anti-establishment movement is where you want to be. You don't want to position yourself as the establishment running against something else. But that's exactly what she did. She positioned herself as the safe establishment choice. Not crazy like Bernie, not crazy like Trump, the safe, centrist establishment choice, which is exactly the opposite of what everybody wanted in 2016. In 2016, everyone wanted to rock the boat. And the guy who could do that, President Trump. So their strategy worked. They got what they wanted, but they regretted. Once they got what they wanted, they regretted it, because at some point it must have dawned on them that they were running the wrong campaign in the wrong year against the wrong guy. And once that happened, and once they realized and Trump won the nomination, they thought, okay, well, we're still going to be able to take this guy, right? But let's go back to a pivotal moment in time. It was May the 6th. May the 6th of 2016. What happened on May the 6th of 2016? On May the 6th, 2016, after having poll after poll after poll for weeks and weeks, we finally saw a poll that changed everything. Prior to that, every poll had showed Hillary beating Trump by 20, 30 points, showing he had no chance. But on May the 6th, a poll came out that put Trump beating Hillary with 43.4% against Clinton 43.2%. The first poll came out on May 6th that showed Trump could beat Hillary. And once they saw that poll, it scared the shit out of them. Now go back and look at the timeline. What happened after May the 6th? You see everything ramped up. Fusion GPS, Nellie Orr, spies in the campaign, complete erratic behavior, setups, frame-ups, deception operations. All this really kicked into major high gear after that first poll showing that the Rotten Reverend Clinton wasn't going to have the cakewalk she thought she would have, and that Trump could actually beat her. That's what forced them to behave in such a reckless manner. But they still believed they would win at that time. They still believed they would win. So they did all that criminal activity, thinking that it would never be discovered. And then they lost. And then they realized, uh-oh, we just did all this criminal shit. It's just a matter of time before Trump's people figure it out. And when they do, we're all going to the slam. Now we got to cover all this up, and we got to destroy Trump in the process. And that's how we got here. Thank you very much. Devin Nunes, speaking at an event on Thursday, said that Trump will declassify the 20 pages and the OR 302s, and the Democrats and the media will be frightened by the information contained in the Trump-Russia docs that will be declassified soon. Say that one more time. Devin Nunes, speaking at an event on Thursday, said that Trump will declassify the 20 pages and the OR 302s. And he said the Democrats and the media will be frightened, is the word he used, by the information contained in the Trump-Russia docs that will be declassified soon. Why does he use the word frightened? Because of the legal implications and the potential for massive civil lawsuits against all those who participated, including the lamestream left-wing TDS media. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about the fallout. And the reason why I think that Trump has still not, I know he's getting a lot of pushback from his legal people there in the White House, but he generally ignores that. He's going to do what he wants. But I think that one of the reasons why we may be seeing a little bit of slowdown is I don't think that they wanted to release this stuff in the wake of or during the hurricane disaster going on right now in the Carolinas. I think that once that situation has smoothed itself out, maybe another week, maybe 2 weeks, then I think that we will see the release of all this stuff. And I don't think Trump's very pressed. He knows he's got a few weeks leeway, so I don't think he's sweating it. But I don't think they want to do it during all the hurricane stuff going on right now. We have the friend of Judge Kavanaugh, who is the person who was accused of helping him hold down a girl and cover her mouth. He has now come forward. We know his name is, believe it or not, Mark Judge, and he is a judge. He was Kavanaugh's friend back there at prep school. He is the person who was mentioned in the complaint. He says that the allegation is false and completely nuts. He says the woman making the claim has not come forward. Apparently the New Yorker does know her identity, and they do know who she is, but they say she is not going to come out. She is not going to come forward. And that's one reason why the FBI is not going to look into it. It's bullshit. And it's probably a Democratic operative anyway. John F. Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam, now admits that he did have meetings with Iran where he urged them to wait out Trump's presidency. They ought to arrest that son of a bitch or shoot him for treason. Yeah, John F. Kerry, just wait till after the midterms. Right now it's a little delicate to be playing that kind of a game, but I can assure you Trump's not going to forget, nor will many other people. And you keep playing that little game, and I'm sure you will because you're an idiot. You're quite stupid, John F. Kerry, and I'm sure you're arrogant enough to keep doing it. You just keep doing it, because after the midterms and your party gets their ass kicked, you might find yourself in cuffs, brother. You don't think he'll do it? You just keep it up. A Hispanic worker at the Taco Hell in Hialeah, Florida. I had a flat tire once in Hialeah, Florida, but I didn't go to the Taco Hell there. A Hispanic worker at the Taco Hell in Hialeah, Florida, refused to give an African-American woman and her male companion, refused to serve an African-American woman and her male companion because they did not speak English. That worker has been fired, you think? Well, what do we have here? Yesterday I told you about the satanic offspring of the Rotten Reverend Clinton and Webster Hubbell, Chelsea Clinton, who's got a head on her like a house cat. I told you about this crazy comment she made about it being unchristian to get rid of Roe versus Wade. But I looked more into that, and now, of course, we're hearing that she's taking a lot of heat from that, and she should. But here's the exact phrase that she used. She says, quote, "As a deeply religious person, I believe it's unchristian to end legal abortion." Think about that statement for a minute. As a deeply religious person, I believe it's unchristian to end legal abortion. Well, she obviously belongs to the satanic church that her parents belong to, and all of her friends, and all the spirit cooking folks or probably her godfather, John Podesta, who's got all those freaky paintings hanging in his house, which I understand are pretty disturbing. God knows what goes on there. And God knows what little Chelsea was put through when she was a child with these people. A deeply religious person believe it's unchristian to end legal abortion. Well, let me ask you this, satanic offspring of the rotten Reverend Clinton and Webster Hubble with a head on you like a house cat. Would you say it's pretty unchristian to engage in influence peddling, bribery, and corruption? Would you, Chelsea, say that it's unchristian to engage in lying under oath? How about rigging elections? How about selling nuclear secrets to China for donations to your foundation? How about stealing billions of dollars from earthquake victims in Haiti, Chelsea? Is that unchristian? How about sexual assault, Chelsea? How about forced rape? How about attacking the victims of your daddy's sexual assaults and rape, Chelsea? Is it unchristian to sell 25% of America's uranium to Russia for $168 million in donations to your foundation? Which you're well aware of, Chelsea, because you sit on the board of that foundation. Is it unchristian that your mother left our embassy in Benghazi unprotected, leading to the deaths of 4 Americans, to protect Obama's political bacon and to cover up your mother's illegal gun-running operation? Is it unchristian, Chelsea? Influence peddling and RICO violations. How about murder, Chelsea? Including that guy that leaked that stuff out of the DNC. How about bilking senior citizens out of their retirement savings in the Whitewater land deal scam, Chelsea? Is that unchristian? I'm thinking that it is. You are disturbing, just like your mother. And the bastard who claims to be your father, who's not your father. On January the 10th of 2017, Peter's been stroking us. Told Lisa Page that he and Bill, that would be Bill Priestep, were watching CNN a ton, and that now that the story is out, we can use it to interview some people. 3 weeks later, Papagalopoulos was interviewed. Remember, Bill Priestep was also in London on the very day that Alexander Down the Hatch Downer met with Papagalopoulos. And we know that the day after they started Operation Crossfire Hurricane, July 31st, 2017, the very next day, Peter's Ben Strokinus was meeting with Alexander Down the Hatch Downer. CNN did the story about Trump being briefed by Comey about the dossier. Then BuzzFeed released the dossier. Clearly, it was a coordinated plot. Hey, CNN, First Amendment does not protect you from being involved in a criminal conspiracy. It does not. Why is CNN freaking out so bad? It's because they know that it's much worse than that their narrative is just going to be disproven, along with some others. But 2-3 key people, 3 or 4 maybe key people that are looking at serious criminal liability would be CNN, the fake news network, along with MSNBC, their bitch sister station, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and BuzzFeed. Those are 5 organizations that I think will be clear evidence that they knowingly took part in a massive criminal conspiracy to destroy the candidacy of Donald John Trump and then destroy his presidency after he became president while participating in a massive cover-up of the crime that they were deeply and intimately involved in. The First Amendment will not protect them. And aside from the potential criminal liability for all of these goons, let's not forget the potential civil liability. When this is all said and done, and this is all unraveled, and we see the role of these people, these media organizations I just mentioned are going to be destroyed. Credibility is what they're selling. And when this is over, they'll have none. Many of those people working at those news organizations, so-called news organizations, fake news organizations, their careers will be over. They'll be destroyed as well. Many of them are personally going to be caught up in the criminal liability. It'll cost them a lot of money to defend themselves against it, that's for sure. And in every one of these cases I just mentioned, massive civil liability. Carter Page, Michael Flynn, George Papadopoulos, possibly Roger Stone, Michael Caputo, they will have massive evidence, huge evidence, to file civil lawsuits, and I can just about guarantee you most of those individuals will. I think Papadopoulos and Carter Page, probably even Michael Flynn, definitely Roger Stone, are going to lawyer up once this thing has all been unraveled. And they're going to file big civil lawsuits for huge amounts of money and damages against these fake news outlets and these criminal journalists who participated in the coup. And the guy who's got the biggest civil lawsuit was the target, the president. Remember, he was the target of all this. Trump, if he wants to, when this is all said and done, I don't know if he'll do it, but when it's all said and done, he would have a massive civil suit against the government, against CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and BuzzFeed. He could destroy every one of those institutions financially because of what they did to him. He's got an excellent case, civil case against them. And he's also got a civil rights lawsuit against the government, just like Page, Flynn, and Papadopoulos, who were all set up as part of this coup and who've all lost a lot in terms of money, personal prestige, dignity, and everything else. Time, years off their life, stress, it's all going to be included in the damages. And there's going to be a lot of damage. Oh yes, there's going to be a lot of damage of biblical proportion for all those who participated in the coup. And Reverend, I know you watch. I know your cronies watch. You, Reverend, as I've said many, many times, were the impetus for all of this. Ultimately, you and all those around you that you sucked into your plot are going to hate your guts for what you did to them, the country, their organizations, the party. Everybody did it all for you, Reverend. And what did they get? What did they get? A lot of lawsuits. And jail time. Right along with you, Reverend. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow. You guys have a good night. Bye.